The Art of the Global Ear. The introduction. Most of us believe that listening is a natural act, something that happens automatically when we stop talking. But in a globalized world, listening is a deliberate, technical skill. It is the act of decoding a broadcast that is being sent at a frequency different from your own. To master cross-cultural listening, we must break down the 10 pillars of the global ear. Point 1. High versus low context, the hidden message. We begin with the where of the message. In a low context culture, like the United States, the words are the message. But as you listen to a partner from a high context culture, like Japan or Saudi Arabia, you must listen to the space around the words. You aren't just hearing a sentence, you are decoding the hierarchy, the history, and the physical room. If you only listen to the words, you are missing 80% of the conversation. Point 2. Chronemics, the power of silence. Next, we must face the discomfort of silence. In the West, silence is a vacuum we feel compelled to fill. But as a cross-cultural listener, you must treat silence as a period of active processing. When a colleague from Finland or China falls silent, they aren't finished, they are reflecting. If you interrupt that silence, you aren't being efficient, you are being deaf to their thoughts. Point 3. Non-verbal syntax, listening with the eyes. Listening is a multi-sensory act. You must observe oculesics, the way eyes move. Is a lack of eye contact a sign of disrespect, or is it the ultimate sign of humility? You must watch kinesics, the body's posture. In this stage, you realize that a smile isn't always a sign of happiness. Sometimes it is a mask for embarrassment or a tool for social safety. Point 4. Suspending the reflex, the judgment gap. Every human has an ethnocentric reflex, a voice in the back of the head that says, "That's a weird way to say that." To listen effectively, you must mute that voice. You must move from judging a style as inefficient to accepting it as culturally logical. You are no longer looking for what is right, you are looking for what is intended. Point 5. Saving face, the harmony filter. In many parts of the world, the truth is secondary to harmony. When you listen to a person from a collectivist culture, you are listening for face. They may say, "It is difficult," when they mean no. As a listener, your job is to hear that no without forcing them to say it out loud, which would cause them to lose their social standing. Point 6. Verify and paraphrase, the safety net. Because the margin for error is so high, you must use the perception check. You don't just say, "I understand." You say, "I am sensing some hesitation about the budget. Is my interpretation correct?" This gives the speaker a safe bridge to clarify their meaning without feeling like they have been misunderstood. Point 7. Power distance, listening for the whisper. In cultures with high power distance, the truth doesn't always flow upward. If you are the boss, your team may never tell you, "This won't work." You must learn to listen for the soft dissent, the slight hesitation in a voice, or a subtle suggestion of an alternative. In these cultures, the most important information is often whispered, not shouted. Point 8. Linear versus holistic logic, the shape of the thought. Western listeners want a straight line, point A to point B. But much of the world thinks in spirals. They provide the context, the history, and the why before they ever get to the what. If you try to force a holistic speaker into a linear box, you will miss the very context that makes their conclusion valid. Point 9. Linguistic bias, the cognitive barrier. We must acknowledge our own brain's laziness. It takes more energy to listen to an accent or a second language. This cognitive load often makes us impatient or dismissive. A master listener separates the fluency of the speaker from the value of the ideas. You must remind yourself, a thick accent is not a sign of a thin mind. Point 10. The cultural why, the deep empathy. Finally, we reach the cultural why. Every interaction is driven by a value. If someone is blunt, they value honesty. If someone is indirect, they value kindness. When you listen for the value instead of the vocabulary, the friction of the interaction disappears, and true communication begins. 11. Conclusion. Cross-cultural listening is more than a professional courtesy. It is a competitive advantage in a connected world. It requires the humility to realize that your way of hearing is not the only way, and the patience to decode the world through someone else's ears. When we bridge these gaps, we don't just avoid conflict, we unlock the collective intelligence of the entire human race. 12. The roots of this wisdom, our sources. The insights we've discussed aren't just observations. They are grounded in decades of social science and anthropological research. We draw heavily from Edward T. Hall, who first taught us about the hidden languages of context and time. We also lean on the monumental work of Geert Hofstede, whose Dimensions of Culture gave us the map for understanding power dynamics and individualism. Modern experts like Erin Meyer, author of The Culture Map, and Richard D. Lewis have provided the contemporary frameworks for how these ideas play out in global business today. Finally, the work of Fons Trompenaars helps us understand how different cultures solve universal problems. Together, these thinkers remind us that while our languages may differ, our need to be truly heard is universal.